America, the only country where you can't tie a giraffe to a lamppost, but you can buy a flamethrower on Amazon. 1. Alabama. Don't drive blindfolded. Apparently, someone in Alabama decided that common sense was optional behind the wheel. The state actually has a law that forbids driving while blindfolded, which means at some point, someone looked at their car keys and thought, you know what this needs? Less visibility. The lawmakers had to write it down, in ink, that you should see where you're going. Somewhere in Montgomery, there's probably still a guy arguing, it's fine, I've done this road before. This is what happens when Fast and Furious meets Bird Box. 2. Arizona, no donkey naps in the bathtub. In Arizona, it's illegal to let your donkey sleep in a bathtub. And yes, that's an actual law, not a punchline. The legend goes that a rancher's donkey once dozed off in an old tub, a flood carried it downstream, and rescuers spent hours saving the confused equine. The state's solution? Ban bathtubs for donkeys forever. Because instead of better flood control, lawmakers decided the real problem was the donkey's bedtime choices. If the animal kingdom had a union, this would be Exhibit A for discrimination. 3. Florida. Parking meters for elephants. Back when circuses roamed the U.S., Florida cities like Sarasota had to regulate where elephants parked. The solution? Make them pay for parking. Literally. Elephants had to use parking meters just like cars. Imagine being the poor city worker writing tickets to Dumbo. Sir, you're 2 peanuts over your time limit. It's one of those laws that proves Florida has always been Florida, a place where an elephant can parallel park better than half the drivers on I-4. 4. Kentucky. No reusing your wife. 3 times. Kentucky apparently believes in second chances, and even third ones, but absolutely draws the line at a 4th. It's actually illegal in the bluegrass state to remarry the same person more than 3 times. Somewhere in Frankfurt, a lawmaker must have had a messy love life and said, all right, that's it. You two clearly don't learn. Imagine standing before a county clerk who sighs, Sir, the state of Kentucky officially recommends therapy. It's the only law in America that treats relationships like a loyalty punch card. 3 divorces, and the 4th one's on the house of bad decisions. But honestly, it's not a bad rule. If you've gone through 3 weddings, 3 honeymoons, and 3 moving trucks, maybe the universe is trying to tell you something, like, buddy, maybe try not marrying your ex again. 5. North Carolina, karaoke crime scene. In North Carolina, it's illegal to sing off-key. That's right. The state actually has a law against bad singing in public. Somewhere out there, an overconfident guy in a bar absolutely butchered Sweet Caroline, and the state decided never again. Technically, the law refers to unlawful and boisterous singing, but we all know what that means. Too much karaoke courage and not enough vocal talent. So imagine getting cuffed mid-chorus. Sir, you have the right to remain pitchy. The best part? Nobody knows how they'd enforce it. Is there a tone-deaf task force roaming dive bars with tuning apps? Either way, it's proof that in North Carolina, singing in the shower might be your only safe stage. 6. Maine. No Christmas decorations. After January 14th, in Maine, the law literally says you have to take down your Christmas decorations by January 14th, or risk a fine. Because apparently the state got tired of one neighbor keeping their inflatable Santa up until Easter. Somewhere, a small-town council meeting reached its breaking point. Take down the reindeer, Brenda. You can picture the officer writing a ticket next to a glowing nativity scene, muttering, even baby Jesus wants you to move on. It's one of those laws that feels personal, like someone's feud over a blinking Rudolph got written into the legal code. But honestly, it's not a bad idea. Every neighborhood has that one house still lit up in March. Maine just decided to stop being passive-aggressive about it. 7. Oklahoma, don't make faces at dogs. In Oklahoma, it's against the law to make ugly faces at a dog, which means, at some point, a human insulted a dog so badly that lawmakers had to step in. It's the first recorded case of canine emotional support legislation. The law basically says you can't provoke or annoy a dog, but ugly faces made the final draft, which raises questions. Was there a town full of people challenging chihuahuas to stare-down contests? It's not just a dumb rule, it's comedy gold. Imagine a cop walking up saying, Sir, We got reports you made eye contact with a Pomeranian in a threatening manner. You can't even argue it. Because in Oklahoma, the dogs are legally protected from your resting jerk face. 8. Vermont. Every restaurant must serve cheese. Vermont doesn't play around with dairy. By law, every restaurant in the state must offer at least one dish that includes cheese. Not should, not recommended, must. It's the only state where lactose intolerance might actually be unconstitutional. Somewhere, a vegan cafe owner probably got a visit from the cheese police. This is a law born out of pure pride. Vermont knows its brand, maple syrup, mountains, and cheddar strong enough to make your eyes water. And while it sounds absurd, it's kind of wholesome. Most weird laws exist to stop stupidity. This one exists to guarantee happiness. In a world full of nonsense, Vermont basically said, "You're welcome. Here's a grilled cheese." It's the only state where ordering a salad still comes with a side of dairy destiny. 9. California. You can't eat a frog. After it's dead in California, it's perfectly legal to have a frog jumping contest. But if your frog dies in the process, you're legally forbidden from eating it. That's right, you can race your amphibian, but if the poor guy croaks, literally, dinner is off the table. Apparently, this bizarre regulation came from the world-famous Calaveras County Frog Jumping Jubilee, where people take Mark Twain way too seriously. Lawmakers must have looked at the carnage of exhausted frogs and said, "You know what this situation needs? Bureaucracy." So now the state has an official stance on posthumous frog cuisine. Somewhere, a guy in flip-flops is holding a dead toad over a grill saying, "Wait, that's illegal?" California, the land where you can buy weed, marry your cousin's cousin, but God forbid you eat a competitive frog. 10. Georgia. No eating fried chicken with a fork. In Gainesville, Georgia, there's a local ordinance that bans eating fried chicken with utensils. The city literally declared itself the poultry capital of the world and decided that using a fork was cultural treason. Back in 1961, they passed the rule as a publicity stunt. But then, decades later, they actually enforced it. A woman was once arrested for using a fork to eat her drumstick during a town festival. The cops gave her a mock citation and everything. Only in America can fried chicken become a law enforcement issue. Imagine the judge. "Ma'am, this court finds you guilty of improper finger usage. Sentence, 1 bucket of repentance." Georgia really said, "This isn't just food. It's a way of life." 11. South Dakota. Sleeping in a cheese factory? Illegal. If you're in South Dakota, do not, I repeat, do not, fall asleep inside a cheese factory. It's actually against the law. Nobody knows who caused this, but someone clearly took cutting the cheese too far. Maybe a factory worker decided to nap between the cheddar wheels and woke up encased in dairy. Lawmakers panicked and banned the whole concept. It's a rule that feels like it came straight from a bad sitcom. Imagine the arrest report. Subject found unconscious next to provolone. Somewhere in the Midwest, a cop had to tell a judge, "Yes, Your Honor, the suspect was snoring in the Gouda section." It's proof that America can outlaw anything, even a perfectly innocent nap surrounded by the smell of mozzarella dreams. 12. Nebraska. No whales in the state. Nebraska has an official law prohibiting whale hunting. Let that sink in. Nebraska, a completely landlocked state. You'd have to drive through 3 others just to see an ocean. So either they were planning ahead for climate change, or someone really misunderstood geography. The statute still exists, quietly mocking anyone with a map. Somewhere, a game warden probably keeps binoculars pointed at a cornfield, whispering, "Just in case." It's the most unnecessary law ever written, unless a rogue whale plans to migrate up the Platte River for a surprise attack. You've got to respect that kind of legal optimism, though. Nebraska is ready for every scenario, even the biblical one involving Moby Dick on a road trip. 13. Massachusetts. No exploding golf balls. Massachusetts bans the sale of exploding golf balls, and not metaphorically, actual golf balls that detonate on impact. Apparently, pranksters in the early 1900s thought it was hilarious to turn country clubs into war zones. Lawmakers, exhausted by reports of golfers getting flashbanged mid-swing, stepped in. So now, there's a real law saying your golf ball must remain non-explosive. You know your state has issues when that has to be clarified. Imagine the manufacturers meeting. "Okay guys, what if golf, but with shrapnel?" The law still stands today because apparently Massachusetts assumes there's always one guy dumb enough to think 4 means detonate. It's both absurd and comforting, proof that even the founding state of America's revolution had to draw a line somewhere. No exploding hobbies. 14. Alaska, don't push a moose out of an airplane. In Alaska, it's illegal to push a live moose out of a moving airplane. That's a law that didn't come from imagination. It came from experience. Apparently, during a festival stunt in the mid-20th century, some genius thought parachuting a moose would be a great publicity gag. Spoiler, it wasn't. Lawmakers quickly stepped in, probably with a very tired look on their faces, and made it official. Now moose have legal protection against aerial stupidity. Somewhere, a pilot probably said, "Relax, it's for charity," as a moose stared back in horror. Only in Alaska could moose drop become a legislative category. The rule may be weird, but it's nice to know the state took a stand against airborne animal abuse, and probably a few drunken bets. 15. Texas. You can't sell your eyes. In Texas, it's illegal to sell your own eyeballs, which immediately raises the question who tried. Apparently, lawmakers were trying to regulate organ trafficking, but the visual is haunting. Somewhere, a Texan must have said, "I'll trade you one left eye for that F-150. The state now considers eyeball sales a felony, which feels like a polite way of saying, stop treating your face like eBay. It's one of those laws that you desperately hope was written preemptively, because if not, that means someone out there really tried to make rent by auctioning their corneas. Still, it's comforting to know that in Texas, your right to bear arms might be sacred, but your right to sell your retinas? Absolutely not. 16. Washington. No Bigfoot poaching allowed. Washington state has a law that bans hunting Bigfoot. Not because they found him, but because enough people thought they might. Back in the 60s and 70s, the Pacific Northwest was crawling with guys in flannel, convinced they were one blurry photo away from fame. One county finally said, fine, shoot a deer, but leave the mythical ape alone. Today, it's still illegal to harm Sasquatch, a law built entirely on polite optimism and caffeine-fueled imagination. Somewhere, a ranger is explaining to a tourist, "Sir, you can't fire at a legend." Honestly, it's kind of sweet. In a world full of chaos, Washington looked at a 7-foot forest myth and said, he's earned the right to exist. Protecting something that may not exist might be the most American thing ever. Equal parts hope, confusion, and paperwork. 17. Tennessee. No sharing Netflix passwords, yeah. Tennessee went viral for one of the most 21st century crimes imaginable, sharing your Netflix password. Yes, in 2011, the state made it illegal to share login credentials for paid streaming services. The law was meant to stop hackers, but instead, it turned half the population into outlaws overnight. Imagine a sheriff kicking down a dorm room door yelling, "Who's watching The Office without authorization?" Technically, if your cousin in Chattanooga still uses your account, you're a criminal. The irony? The average Tennessean pays taxes, owns 3 guns, and proudly breaks the law to binge Stranger Things. It's the only state where you can legally hunt a boar but not share your Hulu. Somewhere, there's a grandmother nervously asking, "Am I going to jail for Yellowstone?" "Yes, ma'am. And make sure your Roku lawyer's ready." 18. Wisconsin. Butter must be real. In Wisconsin, it's literally illegal to serve margarine instead of butter in restaurants. The dairy state takes its fats very seriously. Back in the 1960s, when margarine was the new miracle spread, lawmakers feared it would dethrone their beloved butter. So they declared fake butter a criminal imposter. Restaurants had to display signs if they dared to use margarine, like a scarlet letter of dairy shame. To this day, the law technically stands. Somewhere in Milwaukee, an undercover butter inspector is whispering, "Is this churned or cursed?" It's ridiculous, but also poetic. Wisconsin would rather protect the honor of cows than its own highways. It's not just a condiment there, it's a lifestyle. If you ever visit, just remember, in Wisconsin, saying, "I can't believe it's not butter," might get you fined for blasphemy. 19. Louisiana. No surprise pizza deliveries. In Louisiana, sending someone a pizza they didn't order is against the law. It's considered harassment, which means some poor prank victim got one too many surprise pepperonis before the government stepped in. The law was made after delivery drivers got stiffed on payment during prank wars, but the result is hilariously specific. Unauthorized pizza equals potential jail time. Imagine calling your friend to say, "Hey, I sent you dinner," and the next thing you know, you're charged with criminal crust behavior. Somewhere in Baton Rouge, a judge is reading a case file titled State vs. Pepperoni Pete. It's both absurd and strangely noble. Louisiana just wanted to protect pizza delivery workers from human stupidity. Honestly, it's probably the only law in America that could be broken with extra cheese. 20. Montana. Wives need permission to fish on Sundays. In Montana, there's a law that says a married woman cannot go fishing on a Sunday without her husband's permission. Yes, because apparently trout respect the patriarchy. The rule dates back to the early 1900s, when lawmakers thought fishing freedom might lead to domestic unrest. Translation: too many husbands were getting outfished. Today, the law's still technically on the books, though no one enforces it, mostly because every Montana woman would ignore it anyway. You can almost hear the argument, "Sorry, honey, the government says I need a permission slip to outsmart a salmon." It's one of those laws that perfectly captures a time when men wrote rules out of fear, not reason. Somewhere by a river, a woman's quietly catching dinner, and the ghost of that law is blushing with embarrassment. 21. Illinois. No fancy hats for monkeys. Illinois once had a law banning monkeys from wearing hats in public. That's right, the land of Lincoln actually legislated monkey fashion. It started in the early 1900s when traveling street performers kept dressing monkeys in bowler hats to collect tips. Eventually, the chaos reached a breaking point. One too many top-hatted chimps apparently bit a tourist, and lawmakers stepped in. Now the law is long forgotten, but the fact remains. Illinois took a stand against overdressed primates. Somewhere in Springfield, a dusty rule book still says, "No monkey shall wear attire inconsistent with public decency," which means somewhere out there, a chimp with a fedora is technically a criminal. It's weird, specific, and absolutely perfect. A reminder that America's legislative history is half civilization, half circus. 22. New York. No ice cream cones in your pocket. In New York, it's illegal to walk around with an ice cream cone in your pocket. And no, this isn't lactose policing. It's anti-horse theft. Back in the 1800s, when horses were the city's Ubers, clever thieves discovered that a sneaky way to steal one was to lure it away with the smell of a cone tucked into their trousers. The horse would follow the scent and the thief would claim, "Hey, it just wandered off." Lawmakers eventually caught on and decided the only logical solution was to ban pocket desserts. Fast forward to today, the law technically still exists, though good luck explaining that to a cop. Imagine a tourist in Times Square getting stopped like, "Sir, do you know why I pulled you over? Because your cone smells like intent." Only in New York could dairy become a felony. 23. Idaho. No giving a box of candy over 50 pounds. In Idaho, it's illegal for a man to give his sweetheart a box of candy weighing more than 50 pounds. That's right, big candy is literally outlawed. The law was passed in the 1920s to discourage excessive courtship gifts because apparently someone wooed too hard and triggered a sugar panic. Imagine the poor sap rolling up to his crush's door with a crate of Hershey's the size of a coffin. Somewhere, an Idaho sheriff just sighed and said, "Son, love's sweet, but diabetes is sweeter." It's the kind of rule that sounds fake until you realize this is the same state that measures everything in potatoes. Maybe lawmakers just wanted to protect women from men trying to win affection with wholesale candy bribes. Either way, Idaho decided romance has a weight limit, and it's hilariously unromantic. 24. Ohio. No getting a fish drunk. Yes, in Ohio, it's illegal to get a fish drunk. This is an actual law, and yes, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. At some point, someone looked at a trout and said, "You know what this guy needs? A shot." According to local legend, pranksters used to pour beer into fish ponds during festivals to see what would happen. What happened, apparently, was enough to warrant state intervention. The law now forbids giving alcohol to fish, which means Ohio has the only fish sobriety program in America. Somewhere in Cleveland, a sheriff's deputy probably had to explain, "Sir, you're being charged with aquatic intoxication." It's laws like this that make you wonder, how many buzzed bass does it take before lawmakers get involved? The answer apparently is one too many carp doing the backstroke. 25. Utah. No disasters. During fish explosions, Utah has a law banning the use of explosives to catch fish. On paper, that sounds obvious. But in practice, it means someone once blew up a lake. In the early 20th century, fishermen decided dynamite was faster than bait. The result was an underwater fireworks show and a whole lot of floating sushi. The state eventually banned explosive fishing devices, though that phrase alone deserves an award. It's the most Utah thing ever, a state famous for natural beauty, writing laws to stop people from detonating trout. Somewhere, a park ranger had to write a report that began with, "Suspect detonated half a stick of TNT and shouted, 'Dinner's ready.'" Honestly, you can't even be mad. It's not evil, it's just impressively stupid. Utah. Where the fish don't bite, they detonate. 26. Nevada. Camels not welcome on highways. Nevada once had a problem with camels. Yes, camels, wandering on highways. So, in pure bureaucratic fashion, they made it illegal. The story goes back to the 1800s, when the US Army imported camels for desert transport. Turns out, camels are terrible at following traffic laws. They kept blocking stagecoaches, scaring horses, and occasionally winning fights with them. Eventually, locals had enough. The solution? Don't ban camels entirely, just ban driving them on public roads. Today, the law still technically exists, long after the camels packed up and left for more sensible deserts. Somewhere near Reno, there's probably a guy wondering why his camel won't start. Nevada's official motto might as well be, "We don't care what you drive, just not a humpback hazard." 27. Kansas. No snowmen. Taller than 6 feet. In Topeka, Kansas, it's illegal to build a snowman taller than 6 feet, which means Frosty has a height limit, because apparently the Midwest found a way to regulate joy. The law started as a safety measure after a giant snowman collapsed onto a parked car in the 1950s, but it's still enforced in spirit today. Somewhere, a neighborhood kid is building an 8-foot snow tower while a city official drives by whispering, "Not on my watch." It's the only state where your snowman could technically be too ambitious. Imagine being fined because your holiday spirit violated zoning laws. Still, it's kind of poetic. Kansas is so flat, even the snowmen have to stay humble. If Dorothy ever came back, she'd probably say, "Toto, we're not allowed to be above average here." So there you have it. 27 laws that prove America doesn't need comedy writers, it has lawmakers. From drunk fish to anti-camel highways, every rule started with one person asking, "What could go wrong?" and promptly finding out. Which one deserves a medal for stupidity? You decide. Just don't tell the fish.